I feel like I need music. Like, welcome back, welcome back. That's a fact. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome back, welcome back. Listen, I hope y'all are happy because it took me a really long time to get this one together. I don't know what it is. It's something about like starting something, being so excited. You're like, oh my God, there's so many things that I want to talk about. And then you actually have to do the work. Ooh, I don't know. Content creators everywhere, hats off to you. Oh my God. Am I a content creator? I am! Shout out to me.
Big shout out for me. Big shout out to me.
Alright, let me stop playing games with y'all. Right. Okay. Get into it, y'all. Anyway, so one of the things that has been floating around my socials is this idea that media literacy is a dying skill. I have no real understanding as to why this conversation started or where it came from. It could be like the political climate that we're in right now. It could have been the Kendrick and Drake battle for all I know. Or I also could just be way too tapped into media conversations in general. But I have taken an interest in why this is happening. So I am here to talk about it, okay? I personally have always been fascinated by art, like even things like I couldn't fully get into, like maybe contemporary paintings, because sometimes it can be a little confusing for me. But I always appreciated what an artist did with their work and what they wanted to communicate to the world. I found myself, especially when I was younger, like frequently going to museums, or I also love watching silly kind of like competition shows, kind of like Blown, like on Netflix, right? Because one, I love competitions, and two, watching people make things has always been very special to me. I love the feeling of connecting with an artist once I understand what they're trying to communicate or convey to the world. Or even better, when I'm able to create my own meaning to their art. I remember being in school and learning how to see something or read something and pick it apart to interpret it, what it might mean, or what I believed it could be. Like, we all heard that phrase regarding the curtains being blue in school, right? And to be honest, that process intrigued the shit out of me. Theorizing why a character did what they did, or a scene in a book or a movie could be trying to convey, or a line in a poem and what that meant and its context of its time period, really made me excited because the possibilities were endless, right? It is what made me want to also become an English teacher. Fun fact. But I wanted to open up that world of possibilities for young minds like it was for me. Learning media literacy really shaped how I looked at the world around me, and it provided me with the ability to constantly question anything that they came in contact with, right? And to be honest, sometimes this could be extremely exhausting, even for myself that enjoys doing it, right? But I do think that it is how we're able to kind of push and frame culture, frame society. Which is why the takes I'm starting to see is starting to concern me, because it's almost like a commitment from the general public in believing like things are not that deep. And unfortunately, friend, it's always going to be that deep. And that's why I'm here to kind of help you see why. But before we define what all, like we do any of the things, let's define what this stuff means before we get into the nitty gritty. So here we go. As most of you probably remember, media literacy is the ability to critically analyze stories presented in the mass media to determine their accuracy or their credibility, right? So I'll put more of an in-depth definition for those of you who want to match my freak. Somebody with a good technique. Anywho. But all in all, that is what it is. Most people remember having to do this in like English class when you had to analyze a poem or find an overall meaning of a book, or even in history class. You remember those DBQs we had to do? Yeah, boom. That was learning media literacy. They got you, girl. They got you. But what we should have been able to glean from this experience was like the ability to interpret a piece of media in the context of like where you are in your own life, the time that you might be living in, how you understand yourself, and the media that is shaped around you. You feel me? Are you starting to kind of feel what it is, right? And I don't think that when I was in school that I appreciated this process as much as I probably should have, right? Or maybe how much I was supposed to, because I know I mentioned before that it really excited me, and it did. It really opened up what learning could mean for me. But I was like still 15, you know? I had like other things on my mind. Boys. And even though it really did shape like my worldview, I didn't really understand its like real life, real time importance. Unlike the Pythagorean theorem, like I could actually use and apply this technique in like my everyday life and the things that I was interested in. But, you know, like at such a young age, I wasn't really conscious of like what I was doing or like the term for it, even though I was learning for it in class. Like I kind of thought like this is a school thing, and the things I like to do is like a personal fun thing. Girl, they were the same thing. And, you know, I don't know. Remember back when you had a favorite TV show? Like mine, I remember Vampire Diaries or like the originals. Ooh, right? And we would watch an episode and I would come back the next day and I would like talk about it, and me and all my friends would like dissect the actions of like the characters, or, you know, like what was going on in terms of the plot or different scenes and clues. Unknowingly to us, we were practicing a form of media literacy, but school is school, and it had its limits for exciting like the general population, and I was a part of that as well. And I saw this amongst like my classmates too, right? Like we did our work, we went to class, but we as a group may not have understood that we were already practicing this skill, and it just needed to be like translated to whatever we were working on in class. But no, because I was 15. But what I will say, though, is that unfortunately for us, I realized that this interest kind of stopped there at the high school level for like a lot of people, which is kind of scary to me now that I'm kind of like looking around and seeing the effects of this. It seems like a lot of people stopped practicing this skill, and now we have like a bunch of people running around talking about how like interpreting anything, talking about anything that interests them too deeply to ponder the meaning and like where things are coming from and the things that we consume is not like a necessary skill. And that, my friends, is a big no. That's not good. And before some people come to me, before y'all come at me, I want to put the disclaimer that I do recognize that some people did not receive a good education, right? I do realize that, you know, some people were just trying to survive maybe like a day to day. Not everybody had the privilege that I had. I was in a very particular program. My parents were teachers or like in education. So there was a privilege that was associated with the things that I learned in depth, right? I completely understand that. Or I do recognize too that some of this might be your individual teachers or your curriculum from wherever you are. It could be their fault, right? As to why the skill may not have been emphasized enough in your classes. Definitely get that. Access is important. But what I guess I'm getting at is why I struggle to understand the reason why it is being pushed against so hard right now from everybody else, right? Like, why are we so against learning and thinking? I don't know. And I think that is why it is making me itch. You know, I've been a nerd for like a lot of this stuff for a pretty long time. So I do not expect people to geek out over this stuff. But I guess even in like media areas where like this stuff is almost like required work, a lot of people are moving away from it. And that is baffling me. So it's not just the general population, but you know, even in our media works, we're seeing people kind of divest from this media literacy thought process. Like for some context, as some of y'all can probably tell, right? Because I keep making videos, that I love watching movies, I love shows, I love music, I love art in general. And I love being a part of those spaces because I love talking about those things. And a lot of those like communities, you will discuss like the underlying context of like one of those mediums, or you would break down like, you know, a scene in a movie or lyrics to a song to kind of like open up these different meanings, significance, these different worlds almost. That is the fun part of being a part of or consuming art. And to be honest, a lot of people are moving away from doing this. And if the meaning isn't kind of like right there hitting you in the face, they don't want to do the work. And that's weird to me. A lot. Like, take for instance Drake and Kendrick's battle for, you know, all intents and purposes. I love talking about this stuff. Anyway, so like no matter who you think may have won, this shit that I've been hearing regarding rap is actually appalling. Now, this is the part where if I say anything in this section specifically, this is an in-house conversation, so you must keep it cute in the comments if you do not have at least 3 black grandparents, okay? We need at minimum 3 bebs. All right, no one drop rule. Let me be serious. Anyway, the things that I'm hearing in this genre where media literacy is one of the main elements to its relevance was actually mind-blowing. One of the biggest critiques that I saw regarding like Kendrick specifically is that, you know, he lost because he had too many like double, triple entendres, whatever, or it was hard to follow him because like people couldn't decipher what he was saying, or they like Drake's because, you know, Drake is like, he's kind of like that popcorny type of music. And not to say that's a bad thing, right? I bop, you know, I like waving my hands, making me dance too. But what really broke my heart was this place that we're in, you know, like we're losing recipes in real time. And I mourned a little bit about what like music or art in general would look like moving forward, because if not in like rap of all places, then where? When? Like since this genre was like created, we have been breaking down its contents, its like cultural relevance, and like, I mean, it's literally like in the name, rhythm and poetry, y'all. Poetry. like I'm hearing like lyrics. I'll put some on the screen, right? Some that had baffled me, right? Because for the first time, you know, like I had to like pause, not for the first time, but you know, in a while, I had to pause a song, stop, and I had to just like take it all in, because I knew for like the foreseeable future that I would be breaking this song down and analyzing it obsessively because of all of the meanings that were stuffed into it. It was exciting. I knew that I was getting like a treat almost, because again, regardless of how you feel about either one of them, it was undeniable that we would be like discussing this for years to come because of the, you know, impact, the meaning, because it was like a commentary about like our culture in like real time. So it was weird to see some people kind of like opting out of it before it even got started for real. And I brought up the beef because, you know, it captivated like the world. I even had my mom, she's 54, calling me about like this rap beef and like what's happening and who said what and and like more specifically, you know, like a lot of people in our community, this one have like a personal relationship with it, and I won't get too sappy. Overall, I will admit it got almost everybody involved in talking about its impact in rap history, and it did start a lot of discussions about the future of rap and overall like the idea of what it means to kind of like protect our culture. That did happen. I don't want to take that away, but even with all that buzz, all that excitement, there was an overwhelming amount of people who were kind of like not willing to kind of like dive deep and look introspectively about a genre so near and dear to our hearts. And like, if we can't do this with something that we love and we care about, how do we kind of save ourselves from the media that we need to dissect for our well-being? Yeah, it does get deep, y'all. I told y'all it's more than just fun times. When I was taking some time to kind of like brush up on this topic in particular, I ran into a term that I had heard a lot when I was in grad school that I think really like relates to this topic in particular. And that is anti-intellectualism. That's a mouthful of word. But anti-intellectualism is the like hostility and the mistrust of intellectuals and intellectualism. The sentiment is usually that education, philosophy, art, literature, history, science, all that shit is kind of like impractical. It's like politically motivated, and even kind of like contests human pursuits, like things that they feel like would actually benefit society and people. Anti-intellectuals believe that they are kind of like champions of like the common everyday folk, and they are against the political and academic elitism, because they feel like it is detached from the concerns of like the ordinary person. Now, after hearing this definition, I know most people may not believe that they kind of fall into this category of a person, but what I will say is, unfortunately, I think that this is more of like a spectrum. That's like my theory. And I think more people fall on it than they do not, right? From what I've noticed in the past few years, that people have grown distrustful of the information that has been presented to them. And to be honest, I kind of understand why. Since 2016, we have seen record-breaking amounts of misinformation scattered across any and every platform that you could think of. Movies that promote like the military, media platforms promoting right-wing propaganda, legacy platforms inciting violence, and unfortunately, so on and so on. And I think because of all of this, we got a little bit like on like the anti-intellectualism ick on us, right? Because all day, every day, we're trying to figure out what Instagram post is just like instigating nonsense. I'm looking at you, Shade Room. Anyway, and which ones we're trying to really kind of like share news. And I think that with all of the real world issues circling us on the day-to-day, is honestly becoming suffocating. And this is something that I think my parents didn't necessarily have to deal with, or their parents didn't have to deal with, because though there was propaganda, we've all seen it, right? Again, those ZBQs, but the amount of it and the frequency of it was significantly less. But we are seeing more and more and more of it, and it's harder and harder to decipher what is real and what is propaganda. And if I had to think about the horrors of everyday life, I can empathize with people about being exhausted trying to think very deeply about the media that they are consuming as well. That is just like the reality of it. But I've noticed recently that it's almost like looked down upon to critique anything past its face value right now. I mentioned earlier that most of us learned this in school, and I also talked about like the blue curtains. And some of you may have remembered the joke that the curtains are just fucking blue, right? And this alludes to the fact that, you know, maybe we learn to find too much meaning where there is none. But I do have some pushback on this, because I do find it to be kind of like an excuse to like not look for nuance or ambiguity in any of the form of like art or media that we choose to consume. Right? It kind of like puts others down for overanalyzing or thinking too deeply, or for wanting to critically engage with said medium, right? The norm now is to watch things kind of mindlessly and engage only on a surface level, or to believe that doing this kind of work is solely for academic spaces or intellectuals. And that couldn't be further, light years from the truth. I promise. I have no credentials, but believe me anyway, right? The problem I think with this is that it decultures us. Deculturates? Is that I don't know if that's a word. I'm gonna look it up, but who knows? Anyway, I feel like it placates us in a way that we cannot fathom, because without this skill, the things that we consume are assumed to have no meaning, or all meaning that is correct. And have you ever seen something without any meaning? Right? It is vapid, it is soulless, it provides nothing of substance to the individual or to the collective, to society. The reason why works from people that we consider to be great were so great were because they touched people, right? got people thinking, conversations got started, and even started political movements, right? Yeah, think about the civil rights era. Yeah, so without it, we are, in my opinion, making ourselves powerless by thinking it's not that deep or that there is no meaning to the things that we are consuming on a day-to-day. There is meaning, and we should recognize it as important. To shift gears slightly, we are currently in a strange place where art and media is moving more and more away from how people traditionally relate to it, right? Now we have a multitude of influencers that create like a slew of content every single day. Now I know it feels like it is just a media platform, so people do not take these things very seriously. But in all honesty, this is the new form of media. This is a new form of media. And what I've noticed is that a lot of times we are consuming a plethora of messages at face value without really kind of taking a second to think about what its message is or its overall content, right? Or context, excuse me. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube made things like this really easy because it's giving you video after video, tweet after tweet, picture after picture, to keep you engaged without you really noticing that you can kind of be indoctrinated slowly but very surely. And one of the, I think, like easy level examples that I can give right now is a content creator named Nora Smith, right? For those of you who don't know, over the last year or so, her content has blown up because she makes like mainly cooking videos from scratch. Some that I have to admit are kind of ridiculous. Like girl, why are we making sunscreen from scratch? And incorrectly, I might add, so many people came for that video. Anyway, but she does like to make things from scratch, and that is the appeal because she is like, her content is popular. She is a self-proclaimed stay-at-home mom, and I think she makes these videos, or she makes things from scratch because of her health. I believe she says that she has lupus. I will double check that, but she is taking care of mainly on her husband's income, and this is intriguing for a lot of people because that is a life that they would love to live, right? And you're probably thinking to yourself, Nia, why is this a problem? And honestly, thank you for asking, because look at you practicing media literacy already, girl or guy or them. Get into it. At face value, this video or her videos do not necessarily like look like something that you have to like think past watching because it's a cooking video, right? But if you flip through a few of her videos, you can tell that over time her videos became highly produced, which like made me stop and think, right? If you're a stay-at-home mom, like how much of the mom stuff are you getting done? If you're spending a significant time like making food from scratch, that shit takes a really long time, right? Like making peanut butter and jelly from scratch takes actually hours to do. That's not something that's really quick. So there is a clear upgrade to her videos, and after she got like recognized, that tells me a lot of money is coming in, right? Maybe brand deals or whatever the case may be. And that also means that you are no longer a stay-at-home mom. You are now a working class individual. However, that is what she is continuously promoting, right? That she's not a working class mom, but she is. Because she is a working class mom. Because, like, let's be real, we never see those kids. Sometimes, but never in those like cooking videos. And to be honest, those videos do not take 10 minutes to make or edit or think of or produce and put out there. That shit takes all of your time. Like this stuff takes a lot of time to do. And should I be mad at her for like maybe misguiding or misinforming her audience? Yeah, sure, for sure. Because she is selling something that is fake. It's not real and it's not sustainable, and she's never updating her audience. But I'm also kind of like disheartened because a lot of people are struggling to realize that her lifestyle is highly curated and stylized. But because we are now like kind of getting used to accepting what we see without questioning it, we are subjected to like at the lowest level feeling bad about ourselves because we feel like we're not able to live up to a life that is not real. And friends, like, this is how media literacy can protect us. even at its lowest level. Another example is, maybe like a bigger example, is like our presidential election right now. Because there is a lot riding on the success of this election, lots of people are not really taking the time to maybe like read or listen or watch like what information is coming out about like the possible new Democratic nominee. And it's hard, right, when emotions are involved. My emotions are involved. But when you're taking in a lot of information without really taking a second to kind of figure out if the stuff you're receiving is being fact checked, or that you're not fact checking it, that's not good. Don't leave like the responsibility of what you believe in the hands of people you do not know, or may have a hidden agenda for you, your population, your society, right? I think that for some, the thought process is kind of like as follows, right? Because we should be critical of the things that we consume, it means that we also can't just like enjoy things for what it is. And to be honest with you, I think like two things can be true at the same time. You know, you can like Norm Smith and you can support Kamala, right? But there's nothing wrong with being able to look at a piece of media and decode the message, the understanding, the influence on its audience, because it will in turn allow you to reflect, create, and react, right? And that is the beauty of art. That is the beauty of media. And that is also the beauty of media literacy. It is what, to me, makes the world we live in beautiful, because art begets art. You know that phrase, like, art imitates life or light imitates art? Yeah, that's what, like, media literacy does for us. It protects us, but it also allows us to create and decode the world around us, to understand each other. By degrading the act of critical analysis and seeing it as like useless, it allows for anti-intellectualism to become normalized. And that hurts us in the long run, whether it's our art declining or our safety because of political things that might be out there, right? And I know some people are still going to feel like I'm digging a little too deep and possibly feel like I am still doing too much. But to be completely honest with you, like, I'm still not even doing enough, even in this video. There's so many things we could dive deep on. Units of information that are being scattered, you know, on the day-to-day, on every platform, and every platform you could think of, is scary because it's real. Let me see if I can land this plane. Listen, even on its lowest level, you can't like Beyonce or SZA and not like media literacy. You can't like The Bear, Interview with a Vampire, Love Island without media literacy, because it is inherent in the work. And if you are doing actually a disservice if you're only listening or reading or watching for aesthetic. You can't appreciate the works of Toni Morrison, Baldwin, Langston Hughes, Bell Hooks, and not see the value of media literacy. Y'all gotta stop using those like quotes from them if you're not gonna dig deep. I see y'all on Twitter. Like, think of your favorite artist, right? No matter the medium, or like maybe your favorite thing, doesn't matter. Think of like their work and why it was significant to you. Without media literacy, you can't appreciate it of its real value, because, you know, you're only taking it in at a surface level. But think about why it stuck with you, because it did, for a reason. And all I'm asking is for you to explore the why, right? Why does it matter? What is the context? How is it significant? And again, this does not mean that you now need to go on a crusade and never enjoy something for the sake of enjoying it. But I do beg you to take a second and question some things that you are consuming. If you are only consuming and not challenging anything that you come across, ask yourself why that is. Let's get real introspective, people. Let's get critical, okay? Let's get critical. I know that's not the actual song, but I'm taking it now. Like I mentioned before, this is real life. It's a practical skill that can be and has been saving us for a very long time from the evils of the world, right? And the more that we use it, the more we understand each other and the more we can protect each other, right? So let's try. That's all I'm asking. Whew, if you've made it this far, I do want to thank you all for your support once again in making it to the end of this video. As always, please, please, please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, press that button down below so you don't miss any of the other dope things that I have coming up next for you all as soon as I get over my paralysis. Anyway, thank you all again. Mwah. Nia out. Okay.